Welcome to the episode of Chat Sports Talk, and welcome to my week 3 of the college football season. This is my recap video. I kind of go over the picks I made, say how well I did or didn't do, and also throw out a couple other games that are very interesting. There were quite some doozies out there, a lot of upsets. I want to say that this is the week that the group took a stand. And came with some doozies out there. So, without further ado, let's kind of go over my last week's picks. I only did 10 games. 10. The previous week was 12-2. So I thought, okay, I probably peaked a little too early. Apparently not. I only lost one game out of my 10. I went 9-1. So I was quite happy with myself. There were a few games that I almost went with that I think I still had a decent week. So say I think I pan out. So let's go ahead and kick things off out there. East Lansing, Michigan, as the Michigan State Spartans played host to the then 8th-ranked Washington Huskies. Both schools come in this contest 3-0. They met last year in Seattle, where Washington made a statement. This is a game I doubt that game. I thought Michigan State was going to just dominate because just how they were projecting themselves. This one, I was like, no, this is all Washington. Penix Jr. is on a mission this year to really make a name for Washington in their last year in the pack. This is I think, the last year of the pack as we know it. We all know that because 10 of the 12 schools are going to new homes. And Washington is already padding their resume when they come to the Big Ten. Going, see, this is what we can do to y'all. And it was no joke. I mean, it was pretty much done at halftime. It was 35-0 at the half. It was not even close. Penix Jr. had over 470 yards in the air and threw for 4 touchdowns. Yeah, it was that type of performance. The rushing attack was split between Rodgers and Johnson for the Huskies, combined for 145 yards. Receiving, they had 200-yard receivers. One was almost up to 200 as Adones. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, so I do apologize. But he had no touchdown. That touchdown went to the other 100-yard receiver in Polk. There's nothing that Michigan State really did that can really hang their hat on. I mean, overall, they were just getting obliterated on the offense, on the defense. It was just not a fun day at all. Michigan State wasn't even close. I mean, they got garbage points at the end of the game. But, yeah, it was, like I said, all Washington all day long as they walloped to Michigan State 41-7. Then we head down to the Swamp, where the Volunteers came into town to take on the Florida Gators. And Tennessee has not won in the Swamp in some time. I think it was, 2016, 2003, 2003. That's what it was. I don't know where I get this 2016 from. And I was like, okay, this is the year Tennessee does it. That first quarter, okay, yeah, it looked that way. And then after that, Florida's defense kicked in. Tennessee stopped doing the run as often. They went more for aerial attack. And really, the defense really disrupted Milton and the rest of the Volunteers' attack. Because Jalen Wright only had 63 yards on the ground. Jabir Small only had 35 yards on the ground. Combined, the Volunteers only had 100 yards rushing. Mertz for Florida barely passed that in the air. He had 166 yards in the air with a touchdown. There were some question marks about Mertz, but as the game went on, he definitely showed that he could make the right reads and make the correct calls. But this game got ugly towards the end. Because Florida jumped out with a 26-7 halftime lead, never looked back. The defenses clapped down both sides of the ball. They couldn't do really much. It was McCoy was probably the biggest threat overall in the offense. He had 94 yards receiving and a touchdown for the Vols, but that's basically about it. But there's all you can really say about that one. There's no way that you can really say this was a good picture for SEC football and how the end of the game went. But this is also the third Saturday in September, traditional rivalry game between these two. It lived up to the hype. Etienne, you might remember that name because his older brother plays for the Jaguars in the pros. Had over 170 yards and a touchdown as Florida was able to quite handily take care of the Volunteers 29-16. Then we head over to the other side of SEC in a West matchup between LSU and Mississippi State. Now this one I said that, LSU was going to win this one, but it was going to be close. Well, somebody forgot to mention that to Mississippi State. Because LSU was doing everything they possibly could. Daniels was just a fool. Over 360 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Over 6 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. He alone took care of Mississippi State. Rogers just could not get out of the way. He did not have time whatsoever. He was 11 of 28 for 103 yards. A 7.6 QBR. It was just a horrendous showing by him. He never had any opportunity to really get anywhere. Him getting like 2 sacks on him. Running for his life. He had 5 rushes for negative 25 yards. He had no ability to do anything. Neighbors for the Bayou Bengals, 239 yards receiving. Mississippi State could not contain this guy. They couldn't contain Daniels. They couldn't do nada. So LSU dominated and neutered Mississippi State 41-14. Then we head up to Corvallis, Oregon, where the Beavers are playing host to the Aztecs. Now this one is also, I went with Oregon State. This is just one of these teams that just have a nice quality team, and I question Mayden's ability. And there's reasons why, because Mayden, he did have 250 yards passing, so I'll give him credit for that. It was 20 of 32, decent, no touchdowns, and a pick. On the other side of the ball, Oregon State 284 yards passing, a touchdown, 2 picks. Slightly better, 14 of 30, so he's about 50% passer. But it was the running attack by Martinez that really set the pace. He had over 100 yards rushing. Gold almost had 100 yards receiving, had a touchdown. So Oregon State's offense was doing everything they possibly could to ensure that they can get there. But also having 6 sacks, and their defense stepping up with the 6 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, ensured that the San Diego State had no time to really get anything going. Their defense wasn't in place. The score was low. It was a slow, methodical showdown between the two, as Oregon State kept the Aztecs to single digits, ended up winning 26-9. Head over to Chapel Hill, win the games of the ACC Big Ten Challenge. It seems like there's quite a few schools from each conference played each other this week. And Drake May, once again, had a phenomenal performance. Over 400 yards passing. Again, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So he does make those odd mistakes, which tends to happen when you throw a lot. He threw for 40 times. So you will end up making those error throws. And if you look at a lot of the top names in the NFL, they also have a lot of interceptions that throw a lot of touchdowns. But it was the defense of the Tar Heels that really kind of solidified things, getting 2 interceptions. And, only 1 sack because they were just disruptive enough to kind of throw off the timing, even though they have a hard time starting to run. And that was part of the thing that Minnesota could do quite easily was run. Darius Taylor had over 130, almost 140 yards rushing with a touchdown. But they could never really capitalize. Only 133 yards in the air for 11 11 to 30 between the Gophers quarterbacks, and 2 interceptions between the two. So actually, Kramer was a running back when he threw the pick. But anyways, at passing, 30 passes, and 2 of them went for picks and no touchdowns. So they were doing what they probably could do. The Gophers defense was there for 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, slightly better than North Carolina's, but North Carolina was able to just suffocate and defend well, disrupt the timing of the Gophers, and they just ended up cruising them. They were up 21-10 at half. I didn't have any doubts in this one. Second quarter was kind of entertaining. Tar Heels ended up completing the win, 31-13. Then we had to Fayetteville, Arkansas, where Razorbacks were playing host to BYU. Now, no, the Razorbacks were actually favored in this game, and I went with the Cougars. I don't know. I think just with BYU, there's always a team that always has a quality team that can never really seem to get to the second level, pretty much. And Jefferson was not disappointing for the Razorbacks. He almost had 250 yards passing, touchdown and a pick, basically what you really wanted between the two. Slovis barely had any passing yards, but he was effective. 167 yards in the air with 2 touchdowns. Kingston even threw for a touchdown. So offensively, they were able to do everything. Rushing, they only had 770 yards for Martin, but he also had 2 touchdowns. Quite effective. A.J. Green for the Razorbacks had 86 yards on the ground, also 2 touchdowns. So running between these for these programs is still sitting up there pretty spectacular. Receiving-wise, Armstrong, number 1 target, 98 yards receiving, no touchdowns, but Hayes at 78 yards for a touchdown, which made it quite memorable. It provided a nice, quality ending for a football game that went back and forth. I think these two teams are very well evenly matched. BYU just had things go right more times than Arkansas did, and winning 38-31. Then we head up to Purdue, where the Boilermakers play host to the Syracuse Orange. This is, of course, a rematch from last year when Purdue had that implosion up in the Carrier Dome. And Card was actually pretty competent. I mean, over 300 yards passing, touchdown and interception. Probably want to have a few more touchdowns here and there. But that bodes well for the Syracuse defense, where they kind of let you rack up yardage, but don't have anything to show for it. He even had a rushing touchdown. One of the problems with Purdue is the run defense. Schrader had almost 200 yards on the ground and 4 touchdowns. They could not stop the Syracuse rushing attack, and it played huge dividends for Syracuse because they didn't really have to throw a lot because he's only a 50% passer. So he had 184 yards and an interception, but he killed Purdue with his legs. Now, I don't expect Schrader to do that a lot because that's not very sustainable for a quarterback to be that mobile. The 4 turnovers the Boilermakers had really didn't matter as much. Syracuse was up 21-7 at a half, never looked back, and beating Purdue 35-20. Then the backyard brawl continued down there in Morgantown. And then this is one I definitely picked West Virginia to kind of take this one back. And this was a slob knocker. This wasn't definitely for the faint of heart. Both offenses were just meh. Jurkovec, 81 yards passing and 3 picks. Miracle, 60 yards and a touchdown. I mean, this was not a quarterback display showing of these two teams. This is more about the ground and pound. And Pitt had 130 yards on the ground, West Virginia 151 yards on the ground. That's led by Donaldson Jr., who had slightly over 100 yards and a touchdown. That's basically the big difference between these two. They just really could not get anything going. And, of course, the 3 turnovers, 3 interceptions on Pitt really helped seal the deal. And West Virginia defense stepped up when they had to. They shut the door, especially in that fourth quarter. And second half alone, they shut out Pitt in the second half. West Virginia ended up winning this version of the backyard brawl 17-6. Then we jump in our time machine, go back into the early 90s. The last time the Southwest Conference was a league. And is where Houston and TCU were once members of. Now they're conference mates once again, but this time in the Big 12. And TCU had that shocker against Colorado where they just couldn't contain the Buffalo's offense, which I don't think no one really can. We'll see when they play they got Oregon coming up, so we'll see what happens there. And Houston's been up and down. They had a lackluster performance against UTSA, but came with a victory. And then followed that up with another lackluster performance against Rice, only to lose in overtime. So how's it going to happen with this I-40 showdown? And this one I did pick TCU because I think TCU is going to be slightly better than Houston. I think Houston's trying to retool and then making a jump to the Power Conference as you're retooling. Probably not the best move. The best move to kind of do it was last year when they still had Tune, but he is now gone. And TCU wasted no time. It was a 20-13 halftime, so it looked like it was going to be a good match between these two. But TCU wasn't having none of that. Chandler Morris had over 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, plus another 53 yards on the ground rushing. Bailey had 126 yards rushing with a touchdown. Houston couldn't do. Donovan Smith had a decent showing. He had 225 yards passing, but he threw 2 picks, which really kind of helped ruin a lot of things for them. Defensive-wise, didn't have much success either. They ended up getting 3 sacks, but TCU's defense doubled that. Disrupted U of H's game plan throughout the day, and TCU walked out of H-Town 36-13 victors. And then my last game that I picked to complete my 9-win week, Fresno State visiting Arizona State. This was the game I was like, nope, this is Fresno State's game. Arizona State is, as I'm jesting myself, still trying to find their place, trying to find who's going to be where and whatnot. And for the quarterback situation, it didn't matter who was the quarterback. 5 interceptions were thrown by Arizona State quarterbacks. They could do nothing right. Keene was just Keene. 280 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. He wasn't brilliant, but he wasn't terrible. He did make some really buffoonery plays. As Fresno State did cough up 3 fumbles, they ended up getting sacked 6 times. So there are definitely some issues with the offense in terms and ball security. So Arizona State defense was actually able to make some noise here and there. Offense just couldn't match the intensity. And they fell behind quick, fast, in their hurry. And it was 16-0 at half. Fresno State didn't look back. Completed the shutout and knocked off Arizona State 29-0 to complete my 9-1 season. Phew. We still got a lot of football still left. But looking over some of the other games out there, the Colorado State game, which once again, Colorado State's the opposing head coach made some choice comments. They got the Deion Sanders riled up, then got his team riled up. We saw that in the where the teams were on the field during the pregame warm-ups and definitely were jawing at each other. You saw that when they played. There was a lot of chippiness on the field. But Colorado State did not just roll over They stepped up to the plate and challenged Colorado. They ended up going to overtime, and that's when Colorado was able to easily win 45-35. But definitely a game that now people didn't think would be as close as it was. Speaking of games not being as close as it was, Alabama visiting South Florida. South Florida was holding Alabama to 3 points at halftime. Buckner, the Irish transfer, was horrible. Absolutely horrible for the Tide. The Tide right now have no question what they're going to do at the quarterback position. I mean, they've gone from Jalen Hurts, the Tua Tagovailoa, the Mac Jones, the Bryce Young, to a carousel of mediocrity. However, the Tide was still able to roll on because their defense did not allow South Florida to do much of anything except to get those 3 points in the first quarter. Even after a huge rain delay, the Tide rolled 17-3, but definitely a lot closer than what people would actually think would actually happen. Another close outcome up there in Chestnut Hill, where Boston College was coming back against Florida State. Florida State looked like they had this game handled, and I thought they would have this game handled. Eagles were not so fast and start coming back. It wasn't in the fourth quarter, 31-29. Florida State had the ball. There was like a third down play running. Boston College had a personal foul, face mask, gave him 15 yards, first down. That was it. Florida State was able to close it out, shut the door on any type of comeback by Boston College, beating them 31-29. Rattler and the Gamecocks of South Carolina took it to the Bulldogs early. They were up 14-3 at the half, but at the second half, that's when things clicked for the Bulldogs, and they closed the door in avoiding any type of potential upset by South Carolina, beating them 24-14. Another one was Wake Forest and Old Dominion. Old Dominion had Wake Forest's number throughout that game, and Wake Forest just continued to battle back. The defense stepped up, made plays when they had to. Wake Forest then were just doing everything they possibly could. Ended up winning 27-24, probably one of the best comebacks I watched. Then you watch Ohio went at home against Iowa State 10-7. I mean, it was 0-0 at halftime. Ridiculous. Also, Miami of Ohio going to Cincinnati, win their rivalry game against the Bearcats in overtime. South Florida goes into Stillwater and embarrass the Cowboys 33-7. And so there's a lot of games out there that the group are showing that they're not going to quite go away quietly in the night. Nevada actually put up a fight against Kansas. Kansas only able to squeak out victory in Reno, 31-24. So looking at that aspect, there's a lot of good quality games out there. It's really hard to determine which group of 5-member would get the nod for the New York Six Bowls. Right now it's crossed between, I think, Fresno State and South Florida. I think they're probably the top two. App State's always up there as well, but depends on how they finish the season. Air Force is looking really good as well. Army, they went to San Antonio on last Friday night and just ran over the Roadrunners. So there's a lot of quality games out there. There you go. I kind of ran over a bunch of games, even some games that I didn't cover that were just shockers. I mean, that South Florida game was a shock. Didn't cover. But hey, just let me know down below which game really surprised you the most. Which game are you looking forward to next week? I mean, there's going to be a few dandies out there. That Notre Dame Ohio State showdown will kind of showcase, are the Irish for real? Because they've yet to really mess with anyone. But hey, just let me know down below. I want you down to go hit that thumbs up for me, especially that content provider. Really pleases you two guys. Really help promote this video out. And you also subscribe. About 90% of you guys are not subscribed. Doesn't cost you anything, or it helps me provide more entertainment value for you. Once you're there, make sure you Click that bell icon, turn on notifications, so next time I post any more content on my channel. And I'll see you next time on Chat Sports Talk.